Picture this. You are a 9-year-old boy, and you are standing at a crossroads that will quite literally dictate the trajectory of your entire life.
Right, just a kid.
Exactly. On one side, you have your biological father. He is a highly educated, brilliant man. We're talking about someone who finished his undergrad in under 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then went on to Stanford, the University of Chicago, Northwestern. I mean, all on full financial scholarships. He is a man who believes deeply in the traditional system, right? He works incredibly hard, and as a result, he makes a very comfortable income.
Makes sense. A classic success story.
But then on the other side, you have your best friend's father, a man who never even finished the 8th grade.
That is quite the contrast.
It really is. You have two incredibly different blueprints for navigating the world, physically operating in the exact same town right next to each other.
I mean, it is a striking setup.
And here is the emotional core of this story, the part that really hits home for a lot of us. Both of these men worked tirelessly their entire lives. Both actually made good incomes. Yet one of them would eventually die, leaving tens of millions of dollars to his family, to charities, to his church.
And the other.
The other, the brilliant, highly educated man, would leave behind little more than a stack of unpaid bills.
Man, that is tough.
It is. So imagine being that child, right? Forced to choose which voice to listen to, which path do you take? How do you navigate that universal creeping anxiety we all share about simply not having enough money to survive?
Yeah, well, it is an anxiety that haunts almost everyone, regardless of their background or current salary. And that choice between the two fathers represents a choice every single one of us has to make, whether we consciously realize it or not.
Exactly. So today we are taking a deep dive into the core concepts from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We are going on a journey through these pivotal lessons.
And it is so relevant right now. We are currently navigating an era of unprecedented global and technological change. The traditional standard advice of, go to school, get good grades, get a safe, secure job, it is essentially an industrial age relic. It was spectacular advice for people born before 1945. Today, following that old set of rules might actually be the most dangerous, risky thing you can do for your financial future.
Really? The most risky thing?
Oh, absolutely. We are living in a rapidly changing world, and our education system, unfortunately, has just not kept pace with the reality of how money actually operates out there in the wild.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the foundation of everything in our source material today comes down to a massive mindset shift.
It really does.
What stands out immediately is that it wasn't just that these two men had different bank account balances. It was that they approached the very concept of money from entirely different universes.
Yeah, their thoughts shaped their financial realities long before the paychecks ever cleared.
Let's talk about their everyday language, because I found this fascinating. The poor dad had this deeply ingrained habit of saying, I can't afford it.
Right, a total reflex.
Exactly. Whenever he faced a financial hurdle or something he wanted to buy, that was his default automatic response. But the rich dad absolutely forbade those 4 words in his house.
He hated them.
He insisted that you flip it into a question. You have to say, how can I afford it?
Which is such a subtle but powerful shift. What is fascinating here is the cognitive mechanics behind the language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't afford it acts as a literal mental stop sign. The moment those words leave your mouth, your brain literally shuts down its problem-solving centers.
Wow. So you just stop thinking.
Exactly. It induces intellectual laziness and apathy. You let yourself off the hook. You don't have to think anymore.
You just accept defeat.
Right. Conversely, asking how can I afford it forces the brain, which is essentially the most powerful supercomputer on Earth, to actually exercise.
It puts it to work.
Yes. It forces you to search for answers, to open up possibilities, to look for creative solutions. The rich dad believed that proper mental exercise increases your chances for wealth. And automatically defaulting to, I can't afford it, was a sign of mental lethargy that slowly drains your financial vitality over decades.
But wait, let me push back on this a little, make sure I'm mapping this out right. If I literally have $3 in my checking account, asking how can I afford a Ferrari just feels completely delusional.
I get that.
It feels like this rich dad is asking a kid to ignore his current reality, just pretend the money is there.
I see why it feels that way. But the rich dad wasn't advocating for reckless spending or ignoring your actual bank balance.
Okay.
He wasn't saying buy it anyway on a credit card.
Yeah.
He was combating the human spirit's surrender to circumstance.
Oh, I like that phrasing. Surrender to circumstance.
Yeah, because when you definitively state, I can't afford it, a subtle sadness and helplessness creep in. It leads to despondency. Asking, how can I afford it?
Yep.
Empowers you.
So it is about not letting your current lack of funds dictate your ability to generate ideas.
Exactly. Maybe the answer to how can I afford it is I need to build a new stream of income, or I need to partner with someone who has capital. It is about taking control of the mental narrative rather than just being a victim of your wallet.
That makes a lot of sense. And their philosophies clashed on almost every major life decision, not just those phrases.
Oh, big time.
The poor dad would look at his house and say, our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset.
Which is what everyone says.
Right. But the rich dad would look at the exact same piece of real estate and say, my house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you are in serious trouble.
It's a contrarian view.
And it extended to taxes, too. Now, for the listener, we are just neutrally reporting the views in the text here, not taking a political stance. But the poor dad believed the rich should pay more in taxes to take care of the less fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
The rich dad believed that taxes punish those who produce and reward those who don't.
And this ties directly back to how the traditional system fails to teach financial literacy. Schools focus entirely on scholastic and professional skills.
You learn how to read, how to do algebra.
Right, how to be a compliant worker. And that perfectly explains how brilliant doctors, bankers, and accountants, people who earn straight A's and went to medical school, can remain trapped in a lifelong, stressful financial struggle.
Plus, they were never taught how money works.
Exactly. They were only taught how to work for money.
It reminds me of that Robert Frost poem cited in the source, The Road Not Taken. The author, at just 9 years old, had to make a painful, agonizing choice.
Right.
He had to look at his highly educated, hardworking, biological father, a man he truly loved and respected, and actively choose to reject his advice about money.
A huge moment for a kid.
He chose the road less traveled by listening to the 8th grade dropout, and that choice led directly to his first brutally practical lesson in the real world.
Ah, the famous Saturday morning convenience store lesson.
Yes. Okay, so the 9-year-old boy finally works up the courage to ask his rich dad, who is actually his friend Mike's father, how to make money.
Right, because his real dad said he didn't know how.
Exactly. So the rich dad agrees to teach them, but he makes it clear it won't be in a classroom. He says, you work for me, I'll teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you.
A very hands-on approach.
Next thing you know, these two 9-year-old boys are spending 3 hours every single Saturday morning dusting canned goods in one of the rich dad's convenience stores. And the pay is a brutal 10 cents an hour.
Man, even back in the 1950s, that was terribly low.
It was. But the text makes it clear it was intentionally low.
Oh, absolutely. The entire setup was a psychological pressure cooker designed to frustrate them.
Well, it definitely worked. After a few weeks, the kid is absolutely furious. I mean, he's missing his Saturday morning baseball games, he's covered in dust, and he's making a measly 30 cents a week.
He's fed up.
He storms into the rich dad's office, ready to quit. He demands a raise, complains that he's being exploited, and points out that the rich dad hasn't taught him a single thing about making money.
Which sets up one of the most brilliant behavioral tests in the entire source material.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So the rich dad lets the kid vent, and then he calmly explains that life doesn't usually talk to you. It pushes you around. Every push is life saying, wake up, there's something I want you to learn.
Oh, I love that. Life pushes you around.
Right. And if you don't learn the lesson, you will spend your entire life blaming your job, your boss, your spouse, or your low pay for your problems. You will spend your life waiting for a big break that never comes.
So instead of just apologizing, the rich dad flips the script entirely.
He does. He asks the boy if he wants a raise. He offers him 25 cents an hour.
Which was a decent bump.
But the boy is surprised and stays silent. Then the rich dad offers $1 an hour. Now the boy's 9-year-old heart starts racing. $1 an hour was massive money for a kid back then.
I bet.
Then the rich dad pushes it to the absolute limit. He offers an unheard of $2 an hour.
For dusting cans.
Exactly. But the boy, finally realizing that this is a test of his emotions, bites his tongue and stays completely silent.
And that silence is the crucial turning point.
Yes, the rich dad was actively testing their emotional control. He explained that most people have a price, and that price is dictated entirely by two raw human emotions: fear and greed, or, we could also call it desire.
Fear and greed. Let's trace that cycle, because this is fundamental.
Okay, so the fear of not having money pushes you out of bed to get a job. You work hard, the paycheck finally arrives, and the fear subsides temporarily.
Okay, that makes sense. We all feel that.
But then greed or desire takes over. You start thinking about all the things that money can buy, a nicer car, a bigger TV,
Right.
a vacation. So you spend the money.
Right, because you feel like you earned it.
Exactly. And the moment the money is gone, the fear returns, forcing you back to work to get another paycheck. It is a lifelong, exhausting loop of waking up, working, paying bills, waking up, working, paying bills.
That sounds miserable.
It is. This cycle is what the rich dad famously called the rat race.
The rat race.
Mhm.
Here is where it gets really interesting. It is like playing a video game where you're constantly grinding for low-level coins, but the only thing you can afford to buy with those coins are health potions that just allow you to keep grinding.
That's a great way to put it.
You never actually level up. You never beat the boss. You're just surviving the grind. And the rich dad uses an analogy in the text that really sticks with you.
The donkey analogy, right?
Yes. He compares the everyday worker to a donkey pulling a cart, chasing a carrot that the owner is dangling on a stick just in front of its nose.
Right.
The donkey is running and running, pulling the heavy cart exactly where the owner wants it to go. But the donkey is just chasing an illusion. Tomorrow there will just be another carrot.
It never catches it.
Exactly. The worker thinks the next paycheck or the next tiny promotion is the answer to their underlying fear, but they are just pulling someone else's cart.
That is the tragic reality for millions of people. And the rich dad tells the boys that a job is merely a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
The short-term problem being the monthly bills.
Right. The long-term problem is how to sustain yourself and build freedom without being a lifelong slave to a wage. So to force the boys to see the long-term solution, the rich dad does something radical.
He takes the pay away completely.
He takes away their 10-cent pay entirely.
Yeah.
He tells them to keep working at the store for free and to use their heads to find an opportunity.
Which is wild, but it actually works. Working for free completely removes the distraction of the paycheck.
It does.
It forces them to actually look around the store, and they notice something. The store manager is throwing away the front covers of old comic books when the distributor comes to drop off new ones.
Right, they were just tearing them in half.
Yeah. So the boys ask the distributor if they can keep the old comics. He agrees on the condition that they don't resell them.
Okay, so what do?
They don't resell them. Instead, they set up a comic book reading library in a spare room in Mike's basement.
Brilliant.
They hire Mike's younger sister to run it, charge the neighborhood kids an admission fee of 10 cents to read all the comics they want in 2 hours, and suddenly they are clearing $9 a week.
Which was a fortune for a kid back then.
Huge money. And the best part, they didn't even have to be physically present in the basement for the library to generate cash.
And that right there is the essence of lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. They have money work for them.
A completely different paradigm.
By starting that library, they created an asset. They built a system that generated cash flow independently of their physical labor.
But to transition this concept from a childhood comic book library into adult wealth, we have to look at the mechanics of financial literacy, right?
Yes. It is one thing to collect comic books. It is another to navigate the adult world of mortgages, taxes, and investments. You have to know how to definitively identify an asset.
So if building a column of assets is the only way to escape the rat race, we need to understand what an asset actually is. And the text starts this section on Lesson 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy, with a haunting cautionary tale.
The Edgewater Beach Hotel meeting.
Yeah. Held in 1923 in Chicago. It was a gathering of some of the most powerful, wealthiest men in the world. We are talking about the president of the largest independent steel company, the president of the largest gas company, the president of the New York Stock Exchange.
Titans of industry.
Charles Schwab was there, Samuel Insull. These men controlled global industries. Yet 25 years later, almost all of them ended up either dying broke, living on borrowed money, or going to prison.
Wow. It perfectly illustrates the point that money without financial intelligence is money soon lost.
It just disappears.
It doesn't matter if you make $1 million a year. If your financial foundation is weak, that $1 million will flow right through your fingers.
Which leads us to the rich dad's golden rule.
Yes, rule number 1. In fact, he said it is the only rule you need to know if you want to be rich. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and you must buy assets.
Honestly, it sounds almost insultingly simple.
It does, but adults overcomplicate it. The rich dad used the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Adults get bogged down in professional jargon, complex accounting theories, and dense financial models. But the rich dad broke it down into primitive visual definitions for these kids. He said, an asset is something that puts money in your pocket.
Okay.
A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket.
Mm.
That is it.
I have to admit, I struggle with this a bit. If it's really this simple, why isn't everyone rich? I mean, I tried reading a dense financial prospectus once, and it was like trying to read a VCR manual in a foreign language.
I know the feeling.
Is financial accounting just too dense for normal people to grasp?
You're touching on the exact analogy the author uses.
Yeah.
You might be able to read the literal words in a VCR manual
Right.
or recognize the numbers on a spreadsheet, but you get an F for comprehension.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me.
Because reading numbers is not about doing complex math. It is about reading the story of where the cash is flowing.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, trying to build wealth without financial literacy is like trying to build the Empire State Building on a 6-inch concrete slab.
It's going to topple over.
Exactly. You need a deep foundation.
Mm.
To build that foundation, we need to visually trace the story of cash flow.
Let's trace that story, because the source material paints a very clear picture of 3 different paths. Let's look at the actual mechanics of a person's finances.
Okay, let's break it down.
Imagine an income statement which tracks money coming in and going out, and a balance sheet which tracks what you own versus what you owe.
Right. Assets and liabilities.
For a poor person, the story is a straight line. Money comes in as income from a job, and it goes straight out of the expense column: rent, food, clothes, transportation.
It never touches the balance sheet.
Never. There are no assets and usually few liabilities beyond basic living debts.
Now, compare that to the middle class. This is where the story gets deceptive.
Oh, this is the trap.
Huge trap. For the middle class, money comes in as income from a job. But then, instead of going straight to living expenses, it goes into buying what they think are assets, but are actually liabilities.
Like what?
They buy a massive house with a huge mortgage. They buy 2 new cars on financing. They max out credit cards for vacations.
Right, so the money leaves their pocket just as fast as the poor person's.
Exactly. But it leaves a massive trail of debt on their balance sheet. The cash flow goes from income straight into the liability column to pay the debt service, and then out the expense column. They are bleeding cash while feeling wealthy because they live in a nice house.
And then look at the rich. The cash flow pattern for the wealthy is entirely different.
Totally different.
For them, their income doesn't go toward buying doodads or taking on liabilities. They use their income to buy genuine assets: rental real estate, dividend-paying stocks, bonds, intellectual property, businesses.
Stuff that pays them.
Right. Those assets then generate more income in the form of rent, dividends, or royalties. That new income drops right back into their income statement, which they then use to buy more assets.
It becomes a self-sustaining engine.
The rich get richer because their asset column more than covers their expenses.
Exactly. To put it simply, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have their money work for them.
Okay, so once you understand this mechanism, once you realize that the only way out is to build a fortress of assets that put money in your pocket, the next logical step is figuring out how to actually acquire them while surviving your day-to-day life.
Right, because you still have to eat.
Exactly. And that shifts our focus to lesson 3, mind your own business. There is an incredible historical anecdote here about Ray Kroc, the man who turned McDonald's into a global empire.
Oh, I love this story. It is a classic piece of business lore that perfectly highlights this mindset shift.
So, set the scene for us.
The year was 1974, and Ray Kroc was invited to speak to an MBA class at the University of Texas at Austin. After his lecture, the students invite him out for some beers.
Naturally.
They're all sitting around, and Kroc asks the students, "What business am I in?"
And the students laugh. They think he's joking. They say, Ray, everyone in the world knows you're in the hamburger business.
But Kroc stops them. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate."
Real estate.
It is a profound distinction. Kroc understood his financial statements. He knew that the primary operational focus was to sell hamburger franchises to operators. But he never lost sight of the fact that the actual location of each franchise was the true driver of wealth.
Ah, so he was buying the land.
He knew that the real estate under the store was the appreciating asset. The hamburgers simply paid the mortgage on the land. Today, McDonald's is one of the largest single owners of real estate in the world, owning some of the most valuable intersections and street corners across the globe.
The source material uses this story to highlight a massive trap that so many of us fall into: becoming what you study.
Yeah, the identity trap.
Right. If you go to school and study cooking, you become a chef. If you study law, you become an attorney. If you study auto mechanics, you become a mechanic. The danger is that your entire identity wraps around your profession.
And you forget about your business.
You end up spending your entire life minding someone else's business and making them rich. If you are an employee, you are minding your boss's business.
If you are paying a huge mortgage, you are minding the bank's business.
Exactly. If you are paying high income taxes, you are minding the government's business. You focus entirely on your income column, asking for a 3% raise, working overtime while completely ignoring your own asset column.
That distinction between your profession and your business is critical. Your profession pays the bills. It exists on your income statement. Your business is your asset column. It exists on your balance sheet.
So the middle class focuses on the income statement, and the rich focus on the balance sheet.
Relentlessly. The author borrows a concept from the visionary thinker Buckminster Fuller to define what true wealth actually means. And Fuller said that wealth isn't a dollar amount. Wealth is a measure of time.
Time. How does that math work?
It is a simple, revealing equation. Ask yourself this. If you stopped working today, if you lost your job, or simply refused to go back, how many days forward could you survive on the cash flow generated strictly from your assets?
Oh, wow. Not from savings, but from assets.
Right. If your living expenses are $4,000 a month, and you only have $8,000 in savings with no assets, your wealth is exactly 2 months.
Because you just drain the savings.
Exactly. But if your assets, say, a couple of rental properties and a dividend portfolio, generate $4,000 a month in passive cash flow, and your expenses are $4,000 a month, your wealth is essentially infinite.
You are financially independent.
You might not be a billionaire yet, but you are truly wealthy in time.
I see the logic, but in reality, if I tell a listener to mind their own business, are we suggesting they just quit their job tomorrow, drain their 401k, and start a risky startup?
No.
Because the text explicitly notes that something like 9 out of 10 small businesses fail in the first 5 years. That sounds like a fast track to bankruptcy, not wealth.
Absolutely not. The advice is explicitly the opposite. Keep your daytime job. Be a great, hardworking employee. Pay your bills.
Okay, phew.
But start taking your extra money, the money you might normally spend on a depreciating liability like a new car or a bigger TV, and start minding your own business. Start buying real assets that you never intend to sell.
So it's something you build on the side.
Yes. Think of it this way. Once a dollar goes into your asset column, it becomes your employee. It doesn't need sleep, it doesn't need benefits, and it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That is the best kind of employee.
You want to slowly, steadily build a portfolio of stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, or royalties from intellectual property while you rely on your profession to eat.
So if you diligently build this fortress of assets while you work the day job, what happens when that column starts generating serious cash?
Well, you get a new problem.
A massive predator takes notice, the IRS. The more you make, the more they take. And that forces us to look at how the wealthy legally shield their money, which brings us to the history of taxes and the power of corporations.
This part is fascinating.
Now, I need to remind the listener again, we are just presenting the views from the source here. It's a highly controversial take on taxes, but it's absolutely foundational to understanding how this specific financial philosophy was built.
Yes, the Robin Hood myth.
Right. The rich dad viewed Robin Hood not as a romantic hero who took from the rich to give to the poor, but as a crook who justified theft.
A very different perspective.
And that philosophy stems from how taxes were originally sold to the public. Historically, in places like England and early America, there were no permanent income taxes. Taxes were levied temporarily to pay for wars.
But eventually, the government realized it needed a steady, permanent stream of income to grow.
So how did they get everyone to agree to it?
To get the middle class and the poor to vote for an income tax, it was pitched strictly as a way to penalize the ultra-rich. Tax the rich was the rallying cry that got the laws passed.
But the rich didn't get rich by being naive. They didn't just sit there and let their wealth be confiscated by the newly formed tax code.
Oh, smart.
They actively outsmarted the system, and they did it by utilizing a legal structure that was completely invisible to the working class, the corporation.
This raises an important question. How exactly do the rich constantly and entirely legally outmaneuver the taxman?
How do they do it?
They do it by utilizing their financial IQ. The rich dad broke financial IQ down into 4 distinct pillars. First, accounting, which we've discussed, the ability to read the story of the numbers.
Right.
Second, investing the science and strategy of money making money. Third, Understanding markets, the fundamental science of supply and demand, knowing what people want and need. And fourth, the law.
Let's focus on the law because this is where the mathematical realization is staggering.
It really is.
The text explains the cash flow path of an employee versus a corporation, and it is a massive aha moment. An employee earns money, they get taxed on those earnings immediately, often before they even see the paycheck.
They just get whatever is left.
Exactly, and then they have to try and live on that leftover amount. But a corporation operates in reverse.
It is the ultimate legally sanctioned loophole.
A corporation earns money, it spends absolutely everything it legally can on business expenses, and then it gets taxed only on what is left over at the bottom.
Let's look at a concrete example to really ground this. Imagine you need a new $2,000 laptop for your work. If you are an employee, you have to buy that laptop with post-tax dollars. Depending on your tax bracket, you might have to earn $3,000 just so you have $2,000 left over after the government takes its cut to buy the computer.
That hurts to think about.
But if you own a corporation, the corporation earns $2,000, buys the laptop as a pre-tax business expense, and pays taxes on the remaining $0.
Wow.
The business gets the laptop without bleeding an extra $1,000 to the tax man. By wrapping their assets in a corporation, the wealthy legally deduct expenses like car leases, insurance, travel, some meals, equipment, before the government ever touches the money.
That is huge. Furthermore, a corporation offers tremendous protection from lawsuits. If someone slips on the sidewalk of a rental property you own personally, they can sue you and take your personal house, your savings, everything.
Yeah, it's incredibly risky.
But if a corporation owns that rental property, the lawsuit is contained. The rich often own nothing in their own names. They control everything through trusts and corporate entities.
It's a shield.
But practically speaking, what does this mean for the listener? Do I need a glass skyscraper downtown and a giant mahogany boardroom to form a corporation?
Not at all. And that's a very common misconception that keeps people from exploring it. A corporation isn't a building with a logo on it or a group of people in expensive suits.
What is it then?
A corporation is merely a legal document. It's a few pieces of paper sitting in a file cabinet in the state attorney's office. It's an invisible, legal wrapper around your assets that provides tax benefits and liability protection.
That makes it sound so much more accessible.
You don't need a factory to have a corporation. You just need the financial intelligence to set one up, perhaps through an attorney or an accountant, and use it properly to shield your asset column.
Okay, so armed with this shield with financial IQ and understanding of assets and the legal wrapper of a corporation, the wealthy are ready to operate.
Ready to make moves.
But they don't just sit around waiting for the universe to hand them a great deal. They don't wait for a stock tip. They actively create deals. This brings us to a concept the author calls inventing money, combined with the philosophy of working to learn.
The phrase inventing money often confuses people, but the source uses a great historical example to ground it.
Oh, the Alexander Graham Bell story.
Yeah. Consider Alexander Graham Bell. He offered his newly patented invention, the telephone, to the giant Western Union for $100,000. The president of Western Union scoffed at him, calling it a ridiculous price for an electrical toy.
Talk about missing the boat.
Western Union couldn't see the vision. So what happened? Bell went on to form AT&T, creating a multi-billion-dollar, world-changing industry out of thin air. He saw an opportunity that the established giant completely missed. He invented wealth from an idea.
The author also shares a story from his own life, from testing his educational board game, Cash Flow. There was a woman playing the game who drew a boat card.
Oh, I remember this.
At first, she was thrilled. She thought, great, I'm rich enough to own a boat. But the mechanics of the game required her to enter the numbers onto her financial statements. As she wrote down the monthly loan payments, the docking fees, the maintenance costs, and the insurance, she watched her monthly cash flow plummet.
Reality set in.
It was a massive light bulb moment for her. She realized this asset was actually a massive liability that was eating her alive. It demonstrated how invisible financial mechanics really work and how financial intelligence allows you to see the reality behind the shiny object.
And that precise understanding allows you to see opportunities where others only see risk, or to see risk where others see a sure thing, which transitions beautifully into the philosophy of working to learn, don't work for money.
There's a story in the text about a newspaper reporter in Singapore who interviewed the author.
Right.
She was a brilliant, talented writer, but she was struggling financially and wanted to become a best-selling author. The author advised her to go take a course in sales training.
And she did not like that advice.
She was deeply offended. She got incredibly defensive. She basically said, I have a master's degree in English literature. I am a professional journalist. Why on earth would I stoop to being a sleazy salesperson?
She missed the point entirely, and it highlights the tragic flaw of the highly educated. The educated dad's philosophy was to specialize to learn more and more about less and less. You get a PhD in one highly specific field.
And you stay in your lane.
But the rich dad's philosophy was to learn a little about a lot. The reporter already had world-class writing skills, but she lacked the sales, marketing, and business skills to turn her writing into wealth.
So she had just learned to sell.
If she combined her writing with sales ability, she would be unstoppable. But her ego, tied to her specialized education, kept her poor.
The rich dad believed that the most crucial skills anyone could learn were leadership and sales. He had this intense quote in the book, if you're not a good leader, you'll get shot in the back, just like they do in business.
It's harsh but true. He stressed that to build wealth, you have to know how to manage three main systems: cash flow, operational systems, and people.
And part of managing the flow of money is understanding the principle of giving. The poor dad would always say, I'll give to charity when I have some extra money.
But of course, because of the rat race, there was never any extra money.
Never. The rich dad knew that money is a flow, like an electrical current. To receive money, you must give money first. Whether it was to charities, his church, or his foundation, giving was the mechanism that kept the flow of wealth moving. It signaled abundance, not scarcity.
Absolutely.
Hold on, I want to circle back to the inventing money concept for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If I go down to my basement and try to invent money with a printing press, the Secret Service is going to kick my door down and throw me in federal prison.
Yeah, they frown upon that.
In the book, the kids actually try to cast 5-cent pieces out of melted lead. What are we actually talking about here in a legal, practical sense?
Well, the rich dad had a good laugh about those melted lead nickels, too. He had to explain to them what counterfeiting was.
Good thing he cut them early.
No, inventing money in the adult world means using your financial intelligence to assemble deals that others walk right past. It is like putting together a complex puzzle.
Give me an example.
For example, you find a distressed property that someone desperately needs to sell. You don't have the cash to buy it, but you find an investor who has plenty of cash but no time to hunt for deals.
Okay, I see where this is going.
You connect the two, negotiate the transaction, and take a percentage of the equity or a finder's fee for yourself. You didn't use a single dime of your own money, but you created value. You invented money out of pure opportunity and intelligence.
That is wild.
Money, at its core, is just an agreement. It is an illusion built on confidence and perceived value.
That is a massive paradigm shift. But here is the harsh reality the book presents. Even if you memorize all of these lessons perfectly, even if you can read a balance sheet in your sleep, understand the corporate tax code, and know how to syndicate real estate deals, there are still invisible, deeply ingrained psychological roadblocks that will sabotage you.
Yes, knowing the mechanics is only half the battle. You have to overcome human nature. The author identifies 5 massive roadblocks that destroy financial independence.
What are they?
Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Let's tackle fear first, specifically the fear of losing money. Everyone has it. Nobody likes seeing their bank account drop.
It is terrifying for most people.
The author says he's never met a rich person who hasn't lost money at some point, but he's met plenty of poor people who have never lost a single dime investing because they never invest.
They love to fear paralyze them.
Exactly. The strategy he suggests to beat fear is to adopt a Texas attitude toward risk.
It's a vivid analogy. Texans live big. When they win massively. And when they lose, it's spectacular. But they don't whimper. They dust themselves off and try again.
And hide.
The author says you shouldn't live your financial life like a roach, terrified that someone will shine a light on you, hiding in the safety of a low-yield savings account your whole life.
And what about cynicism?
You also have to beat cynicism, the constant noise from friends, family, or the media telling you why a specific investment won't work, why the sky is falling, why the market is rigged. Cynics criticize, but winners analyze.
And what about the story of Colonel Sanders? He's presented as the ultimate anti-cynic.
Harlan Sanders is the perfect example. He lost everything in his 60s, his business failed, and he was living on a meager Social Security check.
Wow, starting over at that age.
But he had a chicken recipe. He drove around the country sleeping in his car and was rejected over 1,000 times trying to sell that recipe to restaurants.
Over 1,000 times.
Yes. He didn't give in to the cynicism or the fear of rejection. He tenaciously fried his chicken until he found a partner, eventually succeeding and becoming a multimillionaire at an age when most people are resigning themselves to a quiet retirement.
Then there is the roadblock of bad habits. And this introduces what is arguably the most counterintuitive and honestly terrifying piece of advice in the entire text.
Yeah.
It's the concept of pay yourself first, which is a nod to the classic wealth-building book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
This is a profound behavioral shift. Look at how most people handle their paycheck. They pay their bills first, the mortgage, the car payment, the utilities, the credit cards, and if there's anything left over at the end of the month, they save or invest it.
Right.
They pay themselves last. But the rich dad insisted that if you want to be wealthy, you must pay your asset column first, off the top, even if you are short on cash.
Okay, I have to pause you right there. I'm looking at my own life right now. If I take my paycheck and dump 20% of it into an index fund, and as a result, I don't have enough to pay my mortgage or my electric bill, I lose my house, my credit score tanks, the repo man takes my car.
Yes, that is the obvious concern.
How is this not objectively terrible, destructive advice for a normal person living in the modern credit system?
It is a very valid pushback, and if executed recklessly, it is destructive. But the expert dissects the psychology of this habit, not just the math.
The psychology.
The author isn't saying to default on your mortgage and ruin your life. He is talking about the psychology of artificial scarcity and pressure. When you pay yourself first, even when you are short on cash to pay your other bills, you create tremendous internal pressure.
Okay, I am listening.
The bill collectors, the landlords, the government, they act like bullies. They demand their money loudly. If you pay them first, you are acting like what the book calls a 96-pound weakling getting sand kicked in your face.
Eee.
You appease the bullies, but you starve yourself.
Oh, I think I see the angle. By paying yourself first, you let the pressure from those financial obligations build up, but you don't touch your investments to solve the problem.
Precisely. You don't dip into your newly funded asset column to pay the electric bill. Instead, you use that intense, uncomfortable pressure to motivate your financial genius.
You force yourself to find the money.
The fear of the bill collector forces your brain to wake up. It forces you to figure out a new way to generate more income to cover the shortfall. Maybe you start a side hustle, maybe you negotiate a deal, maybe you sell something you don't need.
It forces you to hustle.
To be creative, to exercise your financial muscles, if you pay yourself last, there is no pressure, no growth, and usually no money left to invest anyway. It is about using pressure to force expansion rather than letting comfort lead to contraction.
That requires hardcore discipline, and it naturally leads to the final roadblock, arrogance. The rich dad had a brilliant saying, "What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money."
Arrogance is often just an ego-driven mask for financial ignorance. If you don't know how commercial real estate works, don't arrogantly assume it's a scam. Admit your ignorance, go find an expert, or buy a book.
Overcoming all these obstacles requires a systematic approach, which the author distills into steps for getting started.
Right, the 10 steps.
It begins with having a reason greater than reality. You need a deep emotional why that will keep you going when the pressure gets intense. Maybe it's the desire to never clock in to a cubicle again, or the need to leave a legacy for your kids.
And it involves choosing daily to be rich by how you allocate your two most precious resources, your time and your money. It requires choosing your friends carefully, being willing to learn from the wealthy without jealousy, and learning from the broke without judgment.
And investing in your own education first. The author talks about listening to audio tapes from great investors like Peter Lynch and literally rewinding them over and over when he disagreed with a concept, just to understand how their brilliant minds worked.
You have to put the reps in.
But one of the practical steps that stood out to me most was how to handle the desire for luxuries. Let's say your kid wants their first car. The traditional middle-class parental advice is to teach them to be responsible, get a part-time job, and save up their wages in a bank account until they can afford the down payment.
Most parents would applaud that. It sounds responsible.
But the rich dad approach flips it entirely. He says, don't let them buy the car outright with their labor, and certainly don't let them drain their hard-earned savings on a depreciating asset.
So what do you do?
Instead, use their burning emotional desire for that luxury to motivate their financial education. Tell them they can have the car, but they have to figure out how to buy an asset first. Teach them to study the market, save up, and buy a dividend stock or a small piece of income-producing real estate.
Right.
They must use the cash flow generated by that asset to pay the monthly car payment. The asset buys the luxury. They learn financial intelligence, they keep their initial capital working for them, and they eventually get the car.
It shifts them from a consumer mindset to an investor mindset at a young age.
It is an absolutely brilliant way to hack human desire. Okay, let's bring this all together. We have covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We have decoded the illusion of the rat race, recognizing how fear and greed keep us trapped pulling someone else's cart. We have broken down the deceptively simple, mathematically profound truth that assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take it out.
The foundational rule.
We discovered why you must differentiate your profession from your business and focus relentlessly on building your balance sheet. We explored how the wealthy use the invisible legal shields of corporations to protect their capital from taxes and lawsuits.
And we saw how true investors don't just wait for money to appear, they invent it by seeing opportunities others miss.
And we tackled the crippling psychological roadblocks of fear, cynicism, and the vital importance of paying yourself first to force financial growth.
It is a comprehensive, radical shift in how one interacts with the physical world. And if there is a profound final thought to take from all this analysis, it is a reminder of the immaterial nature of wealth.
What do you mean by that?
Money, at its very core, is not gold or paper or digital numbers on a screen. It is only an idea.
Right.
It is an illusion maintained entirely by collective confidence.
An idea.
If you want to change your physical financial reality, you cannot simply work harder physically. You must first change the cash flow pattern that is running invisibly in your head. The real estate, the stocks, the corporations, they are just tools. The true irreplaceable engine of wealth is your financial intelligence.
And that brings us right back to you listening to this right now. You are standing at that exact same crossroads the 9-year-old boy faced all those years ago. You have been given two great gifts in this life, your mind and your time.
Two incredible gifts.
Every single time a dollar enters your hand, you and only you have the absolute power to choose your future. You can spend it foolishly on fleeting desires and choose to be poor. You can buy expensive liabilities that look like wealth and choose to be middle class.
Or you can choose differently.
You can invest it in your mind, learn to acquire genuine assets, and choose to be wealthy. It is what is in your head that determines what ends up in your hands. So looking back at those two diverging roads and thinking of the reality of your own financial life today, don't play it safe, play it smart.